Hi, I'm TD Madia. Welcome to my podcast, Politricking. If you're a politically invested individual, Politricking is the podcast for you. Catch exclusive interviews from politicians to local well-known individuals. This podcast will keep you hooked. Find more of these intriguing conversations on primemediaplus.com or on ewn.co.za. And please rate this podcast wherever you listen to help others find Politricking with TD Madia. Politricking with TD Madia.
7:02
Healing Hour.
It's 24 minutes now before 12 o'clock. We're done with the Healing Hour, but we're getting into our health and wellness feature now. And on our health and wellness feature, as I indicated to you earlier on, we are giving you an opportunity to call in or send us a WhatsApp and ask any question you have about marathons, especially the Comrades marathon that's coming up. I know a couple of weeks ago we were talking about how hectic training for Comrades is, because it's almost like you've reached the peak of Comrades training. It's really getting really hard. You're trying to really push on your miles, especially this month, because May is coming up and you're going to have to start slowing down ahead of the marathon in June. So what we have done is we are going to create an opportunity to ask any question about marathons, whether it's Comrades, whether you are doing the London Marathon this weekend, because I know we have a community of runners here on the Clement Manyathela Show, in fact, broadly on 702 land. So we've invited Derek Archer, who is a strength and conditioning coach, fitness trainer, and educator as well, to take any question you have about Comrades or any other marathon you're preparing for or you're considering running. So get your questions ready. We know that Comrades is coming up on the 8th of June. It's a down run this year from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. It's covering approximately about 89 kilometers. It will be the 98th running of the Comrades Marathon and the 49th down run. And this is the ultimate human race, right? Because of how challenging it is. It's the world's largest and oldest ultra-marathon race. So I'm taking your questions on 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702 with your questions. Derek, thank you so much for joining us, man. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thank you for having me.
So the people who obviously have started for training for especially the Comrades, and I'll start with that. And the last time, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how we've reached the peak. It's really becoming too difficult for us. What advice do you have for people who are going to be doing the Comrades Marathon now? Is this the month to really load on those miles, or is it the time to start really taking it easy?
Look, most of the people by this stage should have done most of their big mileage. Most of them are on their very long runs. Typically, you'd see that most people do one long one. So let's just say beginners. A lot of the guys that are going more than once, that have done their Comrades more than once, or maybe going for particular times, maybe doing certain longer runs. But most of the guys should have done their big long run. Most of the long runs are set at about 60 Ks. Should be the next week or two for most guys. We also have to take into account that if hopefully everyone's done all their mileage prior to this and we're not trying to squeeze the last bit in, it's better to go in a little bit underbaked perhaps rather than overcooked. But at the same time, we're also going to remember, as soon as we start putting too much stress on, we also start affecting things like our immune system. And because it's sort of going into flu season, our biggest threat to our Comrades finish at this point is someone getting sick. So we often see a lot of the guys, particularly in our gym, they're putting their masks on again and sort of make sure that everything's meticulously clean just to make sure they don't get exposed to any of those bugs. But in saying that, you should really have done most of your mileage now, 3 to 4 weeks out, as we are. We're just a little bit more than 4 weeks out. It's starting to put a little bit too much pressure on. But some guys have still got a bit of time left, and it ultimately boils down to what your preparation has been like.
Yeah. And what about the down run? Does one need to prepare for? If it's a down run, what do you focus on? Should you be doing a lot of strength, a lot of conditioning, work on your legs a lot? What do you focus on?
Look, the one thing with a down run, it places a massive amount of load on your knees and your quad muscles, your quadriceps, your upper thigh muscles, particularly where the gradient gets really steep. And, that shearing force on your legs, your body almost you try to slow your pace down a little bit to control it going on the downhill, and that places a lot of strain on the muscle. That's why you can often see that after the down run, for a few days after, everyone's sort of limping around much more than you'd expect on the up run. But with the down run, ultimately, and with any running, you should always have a solid strength program built in and focus on sort of your upper body and your lower body and your core strength, of course, because you use your whole body to run. And as much as everyone just focuses on their legs, we need to focus on your entire body as well. So, as I said, your core being the center of everything. There's strong glutes, strong quads, and something else which a lot of people sort of forget. We typically, if we're running up a hill, we tend to take shorter strides. We sort of plod up the hill, but then when you're going downhill, we think, okay, great, let's open our stride up. And it actually works conversely. When you're running downhill, you want to make sure that you cycle your feet a little bit faster, so you shorten your stride length. And what that does is you always want to make sure that as your foot strikes the ground, that is directly below your center of gravity. If my foot is in front of my center of gravity, it puts a lot more shearing force on the knee and then more stress on the quad. So, but if we're going up a hill as opposed to sort of plodding up the hill, if we take a slightly longer stride, it allows us to engage your glutes a bit more and not fatigue our quadriceps, which eventually, if they're getting fatigued going uphill, by the time we turn to go downhill, and look, as much as the Comrades is down, there's lots of uphills over that 89 kilometers. So to make sure that you don't kill your quadriceps off going uphill, make sure you use your glute to step out. Even if it gets to a point where the gradient is a little bit steep, you get to a point where it's better mechanically to actually break into a walk rather than run. Okay. So the hill is very steep, rather do an actual power walk up the hill. Use big arm movements, squeeze your glutes, let those help get you up the hill, and then when you get to the top, and you're going down, you can break into your run again. Okay. It's just about running efficiency, and that's where the strength programs and everything come in. We're trying to build efficiency, and when we talk about efficiency, we mean that there's less stress on the body during the actual run. So by doing all the long runs that people are doing, yes, we're building up your cardiovascular engine, we're building up resilience or resistance to fatigue, so your overall endurance. At the same time, if we've worked in our strength space, we worked on our muscle our stabilizers in our hips, and the muscle will stabilize our knees and our ankles. And those all help to keep us on the road and more efficient, should we say.
Yeah, okay. So, let's actually go straight to the questions from our listeners. I don't want us to run out of time before we get their questions in. 011-883-0702 is the number to dial. You're taking your WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702.
Morning, Clemmy. I'm one of the participants in this year Comrades Forum. I'll be doing my third. But I got a problem with burning feet underneath. And then the other thing is, is it good to train on gravel and grass? Because most of my training, I do it on those two. Yes, I do go, but it's just not that much enough. Mostly I do on grass and gravel. Is there an advantage or disadvantage on doing this? Thank you. That's Big Check.
Thank you for that. Okay, Derek, he didn't really explain what is burning about the feet and what they mean by that. Yeah?
So what I can assume, look, this burning feet can either be caused by just overall fatigue at the end of a run, for one thing. The other thing is his footwear might have been worn through. So depending on the age of his shoes, the shoes absorb a certain amount of impact, and that can cause, that once your inner soles are worn out, and once the actual tread on the shoes is worn out, it may be causing stress on his feet. The other thing that he did say was he's training on gravel and grass, and running on grass can actually make you a little bit stronger because there's less ground reaction force of the grass. You've got to work much harder on grass than you would on tar, because the tar is obviously a much more solid surface, so you're getting a lot more ground reaction force, which helps if your body absorbs that force to your calves and your muscle structure. It can help propel you forward. So what also happens on the grass, when you're trying to go faster, you tend to dig your feet in a little bit more, and that also, as much as putting obviously weight to your calves work quite a lot, that might also be causing a bit of tension across the fascia on the bottom of his feet, just because his feet are sort of clawing into the ground to run. So that could be potential solutions, obviously, without having a proper assessment. I'm just sort of speculating here rather than giving a definitive answer. But running on grass is way harder, and it's running on gravel. What it does do the carryover onto road, and often if you ask any runner that's gone from road onto trail running, for instance, now your body's being challenged on multiple levels in terms of its balance, changes in gradient, those kind of things, but not only gradient, but also your camber, those kind of things are a little bit more hectic than on a road. Once your body's adapted to that environment, going back to run on the road actually seems a lot easier because everything in your body is contributing to your forward movement now because you're much more stable, your ankles are stronger. So there can be a nice crossover, and that's another alternative to training, another way to just give your training a bit of a break from the road if you're always involved in the road. Obviously, within reason, not wanting to incur an injury. I think everyone's biggest fear now is, what if I get injured just before the time, or if I get sick? The last thing I want to do is jeopardize all that training that you've put together, or put in, all the hard work you've put in to get to this point. Yeah.
Another question here says, hi Clement, ask Derek there for me, how many miles should we be running per week as someone prepares for Comrades?
Okay, so the Comrades, look, it's what we, most of the programs we look at, the very basic stuff looks at distance. Okay, now the problem being that our body doesn't program distance. Our head understands distance, and we sort of look at our loads and it says, okay, you should be able to have around this number of kilometers per week. The problem being that it might take me a certain amount of time to run those kilometers at that intensity, but it might take you 2 hours quicker. Do you know what I mean? So your body is programmed. We program our brains about the mileage actually, but at the same time, our body is being subjected to a stress for a period of time. So when we're running, we're actually running for time, not for distance. Because as we get more efficient, we should be able to. I mean, if I set aside, if I want to go run 10Ks now, and I run it with some of my colleagues who are really quick, their 10Ks time is very fast. It might be 15 or 10 minutes faster than me. So if that was a training time, they've done themselves out of 10 minutes. So the distance we should be training at now is more about time rather than time on your feet. You always hear that comment, time on your feet rather than a distance, because everyone's distance will be different. So over time. So it's very difficult to say, right, this is the mileage you should be doing, because at the same, I might say to you, okay, you should be at this mileage, but without knowing your pace that you're going to run that mileage at, I might put you out under too much stress, because for you to get to that particular mileage, you're adding on 3 or 4 more hours per week than you should be doing. So it should be down to the number of hours. If we look at how we tend to, when we're programming for the Comrades, one of the simple methodologies that we use in terms of periodization, we look at the number of year hours that someone's supposed to be able to put aside for training. So although we don't train for a year for Comrades, although you should be coming with a zero base for it, anyway, we work on literally about 400 year hours, and we divide it by 2. So we're able, within 6 months, we should be doing 200 hours of training. Now that 200 hours is broken over the number of weeks that make up those 6 months before your event. And in that training, those hours also, they include the different components of running, whether we're doing your endurance run, your tempo runs, your intervals, your hill training, and your strength stuff. So once again, it's looking at time, and we know that each of those components is a particular intensity we need to train at. So that helps us as a very good guideline for, as I said, from a time perspective. So it's quite difficult. What you'd want to look at is, if someone says you need to do this sort of mileage, work on, look at your pace. What is it? How long does it take you to do a kilometer? How much stress is that going to put you under? So, for instance, like I said, sometimes to go into the Comrades underbaked is better than to go into it too hectic. You still want to have, especially if you're not. Most people that run it are run for enjoyment. Well, I don't know. People might be a little bit sick if you think that's enjoyable, but just joking. But
who just runs 90 Ks just for enjoyment?
Just runs, exactly. Who would run 89 kilometers and stuff like that? But seriously, so everyone's going to be different, because we also have different environments to be working every day. If you sit the whole day and we've got to go out and do extra training, after sitting the whole day, we've got to make up a lot. But if you've got a job where, like ourselves, for instance, we are on our feet the whole day. If we're on the side of the rugby field on a Saturday, we do 25 kilometers of walking between our different teams and stuff like that. So you've got to take all of those other factors into account as well. And also remembering some of the Comrade stuff, you race, some of that race, you're definitely going to be walking. So you've got to build in your walking times as well.
Okay. Tabang, you calling us from Kempton Park. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, man. Go ahead.
Yes, Clement, I would like to ask the coach. I've been a coach for the past 15 years, and I've got 10 Comrades, by the way, and I'm impressed by your running these days.
I'm trying. Well done on your 10 comrades, Taba.
No, you're very good, and much respect to you. But getting on to the coach, I've always found myself as someone that uses some sort of an unorthodox training methods. What I'm going to say to you is like, I see like a lot of coaches, like your conditioning coaches, like yourself, believe more in like what bike training.
Yeah.
Yes, as opposed to me, where I will take some of my my athletes. I think some of them that are more into the gym, I will say, okay, let's run with the tire on gravel and on grass. I've always believed that if I make you run on grass, your endurance becomes different. If I make you run on gravel with a tire, you develop certain muscles in terms of the speed. But, I've noticed that, the people that are spending more time in the gym, like their coach, they've got a different approach. And I always take my head off from them. And I'm learning myself to say, this day and age, I'm no longer training the Generation X, but I'm training people that are more into the gym.
Yeah.
When is it the right moment sometimes to advise on someone that is mostly if you see that the person's running gait and biomechanism can compromise them when running Comrades, and how do you become sensitive to go to the podiatrist and so forth? So can the coach advise as to how do you also stop your athletes from doing too much? And since we're coming from the Easter weekend where people were doing all sorts of, I wouldn't say crazy mileage, but I think people tend to go overboard.
They want to over-prepare.
And my last question is, Coach, I've seen that some of the guys that are winning Comrades, they've got a leaner mass, like they've got like maybe they're quite slim, as opposed to people that have got like maybe like your gym type of body. But for how long do you think those guys can win Comrades, whether it's down or up, consecutively for 3 or 4 years? What is your take on that, Coach? Thank you.
All right, Tabang in Kempton Park, thank you. Oh, there was a few questions there, Derek. I think the one that I got was around people who are overdoing it. What do your advice is on that? Because I know sometimes we tend to over-prepare. And there was a question about going to gym, because Tabang says a lot of people he trains lately also go to gym a lot. Is asking about the watt bike, something that my coach normally also advises me to do as well. What's your take on that?
Okay, so the first thing, obviously a lot of people, this being the Easter weekend, we have the Easter 100 at Randburg Harriers Club, for instance, where they do a lot of mileage. So there's nothing wrong. I wouldn't say it's crazy. Some people have to use that time to catch up. Our most important thing here is, it's like I said to you earlier on, if that panic that sort of sets in, have I done enough? What we need to get across to people is that you don't get fitter, faster, stronger while you are training. You only get fitter, faster, stronger when you have proper recovery. So if you're going to put your body under big stress, like the guys from this weekend, are you giving yourself enough time during this week to recover, understanding that if you don't, or if it's on the weekend, you will not be rewarded as much as they would be if you took the time out. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing, which he did mention, was, when we overdo it, what about pain and stuff? When you are in pain, you need to deal with that pain. There's a different kind of pain in the race. Remember, most of our training distances will never be the same as our race. I mean, we don't run a Comrades distance to train for Comrades. We've trained maybe 60 Ks. We try to train our body to be efficient. So whatever nutrition we're putting in, we'll keep fueling that system that we can get to the end. And once we start, without a doubt, somewhere in the Comrades, it doesn't matter what our preparation's been like, we will experience some level of pain and discomfort. Hopefully not cramps and stuff, or injury. But our main thing here is we're going to work out, if I'm in pain, what is it from? Have I ever overdone it? Perhaps are my feet taking a hiding? And if they are, how can I unload them? And that's where the watt bike also fits in, because we can still work our engines properly without having the impact. So we use the watt bike sort of as off the feet training, but of cross training, so to speak, if you want to call it that. But also just to unload the joints and the feet and the knees and so on. And the watt bike's really good because it gives you, it enables you to also see for yourself on the watt bike which leg is dominant. Are you getting your push and your pull correct on that thing? Because it's very the graphics are very good on it, and the measures based on whether it's a watt bike pro or a trainer, it gives you a lot of different feedback. But for one thing, we shouldn't be, if people are in pain, you shouldn't train through pain. You've got to address that issue. Like I said, even if you get told you need to tap off a little bit, you're not going to go backwards completely. It takes a long time to detrain. If you've built up a really solid foundation of training, we won't deep train that much. It'll be more of a psychological battle than it would be a physical battle. But even on the day, the occasion will lift you as well. And that's the beauty of the Comrades. You have people along the side. You've got your name on your number and on your number badge or whatever. People call your name out. There's people around you. Even if you've missed a few of your training sessions and maybe a week or more just because you've been injured, but you've let yourself recover properly, rather have that than be able to go and attend the race and be racing in pain. And like I said, the enormity of the event and the people around and the whole thrill that goes with being part of something so special will lift you up on the day anyway. So, one should be cautious about training in terms of pain. And if you have the pain, don't wait for it to go there. Try and get it dealt with. If you do have the ability to go and see a physiotherapist, or if it's your feet, if your shoes, can you maybe see a podiatrist as well? But the main thing, once you've got pain, it's a sign, and you don't want to ignore it and then on the day go and bomb out. And whereas perhaps you could have dealt with it beforehand. And like I said, even if you're forced to miss a couple of sessions or even a week of training, you're not going to go backwards that much. Not at this point.
Okay, I've got 3 more questions that I want us to respond to in like a minute and a half if we can, Derek, because I'm out of time.
Sure.
One person is asking about the food to eat. What should you be like? What is like? Should you be taking shakes? Must you be taking those electrolytes? What's the best stuff, nutrition to have with you before and also during the race? There's another person also asking about mental strength. How do you build up on mental strength? Because Comrades is not just about your physical fitness, but it's also about your mental fitness.
Okay, so I want to address the mental one first quickly. So mental strength actually comes from training. By sticking to a training program like these guys have, like the people have that are competing, by putting yourself, by waking up every morning, by waking up and doing your long runs, that starts to build that mental strength. And as your distances and stuff get more, and the time you spend in it get more, that does help build up the mental strength as well.
Okay.
The other thing is just work in groups where if someone is maybe a little bit better than you and you're forced to work a little bit harder than normal. You listen to what your coach says if you're following a coaching with the coach, or if you're running in a group, get a group to push you a little bit harder, if they've got certain time. In terms of nutrition, look, there's all those nutritional things you mentioned, your shakes and those kind of things, all have different values in what we're doing in our race. So everyone's race nutrition is slightly different. Your electrolytes are very important. Those are the things, your sodium and potassium, if you get in your rehydrate type drinks. You need those balance of salts in order for your muscles to continue contracting efficiently. When they're out of sync, that's when you start getting cramps.
Yeah, got it. Derek, thank you so much, man, for making time for us. That's Derek Archer, a strength and conditioning coach.
Politics isn't just about policies and power plays. It's about people. It's about you. I'm CD Madia, and on Politricking, we go beyond the headlines. From interviews with politicians to the voices shaping our society, we break down the stories that matter and why they matter to you. Stay informed, stay engaged. Stream Politricking with CD Madia now on primemediaplus.com or on ewn.co.za.